So welcome to session 3 for the 2024 Community Resilience Leadership Program. Next, please. Quick overview. We've had 2 sessions already, and the last one is in a couple weeks. And the themes apply anywhere, but the stories that we're showcasing are from our very own South Bay. Next. Quick orientation to resilience. There's more information in the orientation slides, but for anyone who hasn't been in the series yet, resilience is a one-word label that we're using to describe the kind of communities that people want to live in. And everyone has their own definition of what that means because they come to it from different perspectives. And that's part of the mission of this whole program, is to have people who are coming from different perspectives learn how we're all working towards the same thing from different directions. Next. And resilient regions are really the key for global resilience because they connect the larger scale systems on the top with the neighborhood and community local level bottom up, because people can travel to see each other and work together in regions, but they have the scale to be able to create the systems that support communities and support ecosystems. Next. And we talk about 3 kinds of resilient places in resilient regions. Individual neighbors or informal groups that don't have a shared facility, they can do a lot to build resilience in their neighborhood. Resilient sites have a facility and usually have another mission that they're fulfilling, but they're adding resilient programs to it, and usually some changes to their facility infrastructure, like a backup power. And then full service hubs have a lot of multi-purpose programs and a lot of resilient facility infrastructure. And a key point is that many of the hubs are actually made of networks of collaborative sites. So we can have 4 or 5 or 6 groups partnering together to become a hub. Next. And to start the session today, we want to acknowledge the Indigenous Native stewards of this land that we call home. This nativelands.ca website has a lot of really wonderful information about the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land from generations and generations. And may we all become stewards, even better stewards for the future generations. Here's our agenda for tonight. As in the other sessions, we start out with this orientation. We have a couple showcase stories, and we're going to do a breakout session. Then we'll hear some more stories, do another breakout, and then we'll close. And you can see we have lots of great stories to share tonight. Next. So what is community mutual support? It's kind of a name we made up. And the simply said, it's supporting our neighbors to meet essential needs with respect and collaboration. And everybody needs support sometime. Some people need it on a more ongoing basis. Others need it after a personal crisis. And then we all know about community disasters or trauma where everybody needs help all at once. Sometimes people call it mutual aid. There were food mutual aid networks that popped up a lot during COVID. And sometimes it's called direct services or community-based organizations. And that's many of the stories you'll hear tonight. And a theme we like is solidarity, not charity. That's what comes from respect, where charity often you just give without asking what the other person needs, but solidarity is about relationships. It's a two-way sharing. And that leads us right to our first 2 stories of incredible sharing. And thank you, Reverend Melanie from Skyland Community Church and Kathy Cordova from Recovery Cafe San Jose. Please take it away.
Thank you, Leslie. My name is Melanie Weiner, and I'm the pastor at Skyland Community Church, which is high up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, um, in a pretty remote area. The church has, for a long time, and a long time before I came to the church, had a tiny food pantry. It used to be inside the building, and so it was only accessible when the pastor or someone else could be present to unlock and escort someone into the building and help them get the food that they needed. And it was one large cabinet in our kitchen. Sometime in 2019 or 2020, just a little bit before I became the pastor, an idea arose. Wouldn't it be great if people could just access food whenever they need it? And this is part of solidarity with the neighborhood, right? Instead of us saying, here's your food, you can have it between 3 and 4 on a Wednesday. Now, what we're saying is, here's food, come and take enough food for a day or two, what your family needs, when you need it. And it started as this little box you see in the slide that says Little Free Pantry. That's a repurposed toy box. You can see how much food could fit in it in that lower picture. And that would get restocked almost every day. As we got more into 2020, more into COVID, we found it was getting emptied all the time. And we started adding another cabinet here and another shelf there and the little bins that slid underneath. And it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We started storing things inside so that our social hall ended up looking like a grocery store along one wall. And that worked for a little while, but our needs kept getting bigger, and our needs to have that room available for community use, because the food pantry isn't our only community interaction. We also want the facility to be available for anyone in the community who needs to use it. So if you'd go to the next slide, we did two things. We built a shed, which you can't see, or we rebuilt a shed, which you can't see here, which has a number of refrigerators, freezers, and lots of shelving. And all of the outdoor food that's available 24/7 is in this, is just outside our sanctuary in 2 refrigerator freezers, and now 2 large cabinets. You can see the shelter that covers those in the background of the picture with all the people. And speaking of all the people, these are the volunteers, or many of them, who operate this pantry. This is not solely or even mostly a church activity anymore. More than half of these volunteers don't belong to the church as a member, don't come on Sundays. They're members of the community who want to do right by members of our community, who want to make sure that there's food available, in a safe and clean and neat environment, and that food is always available. So we have over 50 volunteers, well over half not church members, but just people we're working with. Collaboration is really important. Some of our volunteers are also clients. They're people who need food, and they also come to do the work with us. So we didn't stop here. We're beginning a new project now. We're putting in a generator because losses of power are frequent. Sorry, I don't have a picture of that yet because we're just working on that project. The ground has been leveled for it. The ditches that are needed have been dug. And sometime later this year, we'll have a generator so that next winter, whenever we have power outages, we can be a warming shelter. We'll be able to provide food. We'll be able to cook. For as long as Comcast can keep their power on, we'll be able to provide internet access, until their generators run out. So that is our next step in working with our community. And a large part of this is talking with our clients, talking with our neighbors, talking with our volunteers, and learning what's needed, not just assuming what's needed, but doing what we can to meet the needs that have arisen in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there time for questions? I have a question, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think I didn't use all my time. Leslie?
Go ahead, Camille.
Yeah. How's it funded? Just seeing the incremental expansion, I assume it's also the budget has expanded a lot too. How do you fund this?
The budget has expanded a lot. It is partly funded by church, church funds. We're very fortunate to have money in the bank, so that helps. But we also get a lot of donations from people in the neighborhood. Sometimes we don't know who they come from. So we also work with providers with two food banks, two Second Harvest food banks, plus Gray Bears and many other providers that the food comes from. But the things that you see built here come largely out of donations to the church.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Okay. Well, let's hear the next inspiring story. Kathy, there we go. Oh, let's see.
Sorry about that. My mute, I'm on a different device, so I didn't know how to unmute.
No worries.
So I'm Kathy Cordova. I'm the Executive Director of Recovery Cafe San Jose. We're located right downtown San Jose next to City Hall and in between City Hall and San Jose State University. So it's sort of on some levels, a center of great power and advocacy, and on other levels, there is a great amount of need right on the street in front of us. A little bit of history. We and Sandra Hitala is on this call as well. So she's one of our founders. So just a little bit about it. So we are located in a building that's run by a church that's now called Urban Sanctuary. Previously, it was First Church of Christ Disciples, or First Christian Church. And for many years, the people of that church were feeding the hungry in that neighborhood and providing other services, but seeing that they weren't really breaking the cycles of poverty and the cycles of addiction. So they looked for another model. They heard about Recovery Cafe, which had started at that point about 8 years previously in Seattle, went up to look at the model and saw that it was very successful and asked to replicate it in San Jose. So San Jose is the second recovery cafe in a network, and I'll talk a little bit more about the network. Next slide. So people hear the word recovery, and usually the first thing that comes to mind is substance use or substance abuse. And we think of recovery in a much broader sense, and it's healing from any type of trauma. So we see people whose backgrounds are from family violence, who are coming out of incarceration, who've been unhoused, who may have anything from mild depression to severe mental illness, people who have serious drug and alcohol problems. So really anything that has led to trauma in their life. We're very much a place-based organization that is a healing community that they can come to. Next slide. Okay. We had a strategic planning process in the last year, and so we polished our mission statement a little bit, but our current mission statement is that Recovery Cafe San Jose creates community that supports healing from trauma, addiction, homelessness, and mental health challenges. Our loving accountability empowers growth and recovery. We're founded on the belief that every human being is precious, worthy of love, and deserving of the opportunities to fulfill his or her potential. In this loving community, people who cannot afford long-term recovery come to belong, heal, and know themselves as loved. Next, please. So we run on guiding principles, and those are to engage willingly. So even though some of our folks are referred to us by the courts or a probation officer, they don't mandate attendance. They have to be there of their own self-determination and their own choice. We ask that everybody show respect. We practice compassion, and we teach cultivation of compassion. What does that mean? We encourage growth, and we give and forgive. Next slide. So again, who are we? As a healing community, we're now part of the Recovery Cafe Network. So as I mentioned earlier, San Jose was the second recovery cafe in the system, and now we're one out of 64 cafes across the nation, with one more in British Columbia. The network is comprised of recovery cafes committed to serving people, again, who've experienced any kind of trauma, and we use the recovery cafe model. Next slide. This is how the recovery cafe model works. We're an alternative, therapeutic, supportive community, again, founded on the truth that every human being is precious and worthy of love, regardless of their earlier trauma, mental and emotional anguish, addictive behaviors, or past mistakes. Again, we're very place-based, and by providing a beautiful, safe, warm, drug and alcohol-free space and loving community to anchor members in the sustained recovery needed to gain and maintain access to housing, social and health services, healthy relationships, education, and employment. All of those are essential to this model, and we really see people transform their lives. Next slide. For people working in the behavioral health community, our model is referred to as a ROSC, or a recovery-oriented system of care. So we aren't treatment, we are support. We meet people where they're at on their continuum of recovery. We try to engage them in a lifetime of managing their health. So it's not just responding to a crisis, and I'll talk to about that in a minute. We try to focus holistically on a person's needs. So it's maybe not just their mental health needs, but maybe they have not been to a doctor in a while, or they haven't been eating nutritious meals. So we try to really look at them as a whole person and what their needs are. And we try to empower them to build a life that realizes their full potential. This person-centered system of care supports individuals as they establish a healthy life, again, with self-determination, for them to determine what goals they want and what healthy means to them. And we recognize that we all need a meaningful sense of membership and belonging in community. One of the significant writers about addiction is Johann Hari, and what's becoming now a quite famous quote is that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, but the opposite of addiction is community connection. So we're really knowing that that's what people need, is to have that human-to-human connection. So traditionally, in most social service settings, a person receives support when they are in crisis, and they may recover or get better. And then once they get better, they're dismissed from the program, or the support is removed once they're stable. And that model of emergency intervention and then abandonment sets one up for a roller coaster existence. Next slide. So this visually sort of shows this. So when somebody has very severe symptoms, there's an initial crisis, and then they stabilize, and then they may relapse and then stabilize. And it's really very cyclical and very roller coaster. So what we want to do is over time keep that as a more stable, more flat lined approach, so that people have some basic sense of stability. Next slide. Okay, so in redefining the recovery journey, again, we provide support, resources, and a community of care along the entire continuum. We teach skills to manage mental and physical health, maintain sobriety, build community, and help individuals reclaim their lives. Our model is designed to prevent one life-threatening crisis after another, saving taxpayer money in emergency intervention and allowing mental health and addiction support professionals to focus on health maintenance and addiction prevention. Next slide. So as part of the Recovery Cafe Network, which again is 65 different recovery cafes, some of them are in very small towns. Some of them are in cities like San Jose or Seattle, and bigger cities. And so even though they are very different in nature, these are our core commitments that we all abide by. First is to create a community space that is drug and alcohol free, embracing and healing. So there are 3 requirements for membership, and we are a membership program. And the first one is, again, while they're in the space, to remain drug and alcohol free. So our second core commitment.
Kathy, just to give you a heads up, rather than reading through all of these, could we focus on the core message, because we need to move along. Thank you. It's an important story, so we want to get the gist of it.
Yeah, if you were able to share the slides then with the group, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. And we're going to get copies of the slides afterwards. Everybody is. Okay,
wonderful. So you can move on then.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but.
Okay, you can move on. Okay, so one of the key things besides being drug and alcohol free in the space is that every member needs to be a part of a recovery circle. Sandra, who's on the call, facilitates a recovery circle, and some of the people in that circle have been there for many, many years. Again, we just celebrated this week our 10-year anniversary. And so we have people who've been with us all 10 years, and then we have people who joined the cafe this week. So joining a circle where people talk about where they have challenges in their life, where they have success, and then ask for what help they might need from the group. Next slide. So that's a mandatory thing, is that everybody attends a recovery circle. An optional thing is our School for Recovery. So we have four quarters during the year with 10 weeks of classes that cover 4 different categories of interest. And then we also do events. Next slide. So those different areas within our School for Recovery are life skills, healthy living, inner healing and relationships, and addiction and recovery. Next slide. So a typical day, we're open 10 to 4 Monday through Friday. And so we start off on Mondays and Thursdays, we offer a new member orientation, and that's how somebody comes into our community. So we open at 10 and with a continental breakfast. Then we'll do new member orientation on Mondays and Thursdays. Then we do our recovery circles. We have a very gourmet, nutritious lunch that's served every day at 12:30. On Mondays, we partner with Gardner Health Center, who comes in and does health scans, things like blood pressure checks and so forth. We do more recovery circles. We may have a School for Recovery class. And then a key thing is that we offer a latte hour, which is a social hour with coffee drinks, where people can enjoy sort of a specialized coffee. And then we close at 4. Next slide. So one of the things that we do in addition to the services we provide there is connect people to other resources, housing support, health and wellness, employment, mental health, food connections, legal support, and transportation support. Next slide. And this is one member who had worked for us and now is employed by the County of Santa Clara. Next slide. This is a member, longtime member, who talks here about her depression, and then she's worked herself up to being a member leader, facilitating a group and so forth. Next slide. And another member who again talks here about his having been born with cerebral palsy and having depression, and looking for a place where he could feel at home, and he found it at Recovery Cafe. Next slide. Okay, this is a video, so if we don't have time, we can skip it. So we do surveys of our members on various things about what they've gained from the cafe. 90.5% of our members say that the cafe has increased the amount of hope in their lives. Next. So I'll skip all of this because we don't provide any of this. This is some background on homelessness that I was asked to provide. So when you read through the packet, you can look at those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We just love what you're doing. Could you give folks an idea of how they could get involved with the cafe?
Sure. So we have grown tremendously. So when I started 4.5 years ago, we had about 160 members, and we're now about 260. And we're a very small staff. We have 3 full-time staff members, and then other part-time members. And so we're very, very dependent on volunteers. So volunteers do things like facilitate our recovery circles, or help in the kitchen, or teach our classes. So we're always looking for people to plug in those ways. You know, if you have an interest in cooking and helping our chef, that would be helpful. Or again, Sandra both teaches classes and facilitates groups. And then coming up soon on April 19th, we have our annual fundraising event, which is free to attend. So we need help with the logistics of that event, and or if people want to attend that, they can go to our website, which is www.recoverycafesj.com. I'm sorry, it says .com here, it's .org.
Could you just put the link in the chat so that people
Sure.
can get it, and we'll make sure that we can update the slides before they go out too. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Okay.
All right, Leslie, is it my turn?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, everyone. So thinking about community mutual aid and like how Leslie defined it and how it all kind of fits into what you've been working on here, there's an activity that I usually do with high school students that I wanted to bring into the space this evening. As a reminder, I think you might have seen me in the first session. My name is Camille Lang. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I'm from Climate Resilient Communities as the Special Projects Manager, but really enjoy getting to partner with Leslie and the team here and kind of layering in some climate resilience into all the work here. So with this activity, I wanted us to spend some time appreciating the diversity of each one of us and what we bring to the table when we come into conversations in a learning setting like this. And then when we're also out in our communities, like having that solidarity rather than charity that we bring to our work. So the diversity wheel activity is going to ask for a series of reflection from you. First, you'll do individual reflection. We'll go into breakout rooms and talk about it together. And then you'll kind of pull it all together. Like, okay, so what did we gain from reflecting individually, hearing each other, and what does it mean for us as community mutual aid responders? So the diversity wheel is on the screen. There should also be a link in the chat if you'd prefer to look at a Google Doc version of this with the activity more laid out. The inner circle, or maybe the things that people can relatively perceive of us from what they see on the outside. But there's unique layers that we might add to it. Like I know a little bit more about my race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, and physical abilities than others. And I encourage you to reflect on that, as well as the nuance that comes out into those other beautiful colors on the outside of this diversity wheel. So first, before we go into breakout rooms, I would like to take a silent moment of reflection here. Where are you on the wheel of diversity or in your life experience? Maybe you want to start in those navy blue inner circle and then spread out into the brighter colors. When you're thinking about this, and reflect on what's true for you in your life at this time. We'll give you about 2 minutes to reflect on that, and then we'll go into breakout rooms to share. As a reminder, when you go into those breakout rooms, though, you're only expected to share what you feel comfortable saying out loud to a group of people. So don't feel pressure to overshare, and just make space to listen with curiosity to others. So 2-minute reflection now, using the diversity wheel. What's true for you, and where are you on the wheel of diversity and life experience?
And a helpful hint for me was that when I looked at this, I kind of looked for what are the 2 or 3 that jumped out at me as being kind of really important in my life and in my view of the world.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie.
There's a lot of colors.
There are a lot of colors. Look at the diversity. Yeah, we'll give you a couple minutes. What's true for you? What stands out to you? I could also walk you through how I would navigate the diversity wheel before we go to breakout rooms too. All right, so we'll come back at 6:36. Reflect on the wheel. Maybe we want to pause the recording while we do this.
Can we get the link in the chat?
Have a personal item.
Yes.
Do you have Mango?
Let me stop sharing and I'll put the link in the chat. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for your time in that conversation. Please hold on to the diversity wheel and consider when you could bring it up in conversation with other people as you're building community, mutual support. I know the conversation in our breakout room really expanded my definition of diversity, and I hope you had the same kind of level of conversation in your spaces. With that, I'll hand it back over to Leslie.
Thank you, Camille. And really, all I'm just emceeing here the next set of incredible stories. So happy to welcome Kathy,
Oh,
Tom, and actually, I'm going to wrap up briefly with a short story. So please take it away, Kathy, forward from NAMI.
Okay, all right. So thank you for having me tonight. And how many of you know about NAMI? Raise your hand. Just okay, so a few people. I have to do a shout out to Recovery Cafe because we work closely with them and refer a lot of people back and forth. So we're a peer-run organization. So we are family members and people living with serious mental health challenges. Our mission is, you can go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, keep going. We have a very diverse group of people and people who take our classes. You can pass on that there. So I'm a family member myself, but we focus on support and education and training people to become advocates for themselves and others. And so that's our primary focus. So all of our services are free to the public. And it's a national organization. We're each our own 501c3, so we have to do all our own fundraising, but the branding, the trainings, the facilitating skills, everything comes from the national. So no matter where you go in the country and you go to a support group or a class or whatever, it's taught the same way, you know, so it's a gold standard. So next. And this is where we are in San Jose. We're over by Valley Medical Center. And keep going. So one of the things that we have here is called a helpline. And again, everyone has lived experience at NAMI. So you'll be talking to somebody who has a serious mental health condition or somebody who's a family member. We're all trained. And we provide support information. We look up resources. We talk about our services, of course. And it's anybody in Santa Clara County. We do get people from other counties where their family members are here and they want to help them. So we help people from other places as well. And it's a good place to start if you don't know where to start. You know, we'll give you some direction. Next. Yeah, so here's our hours are, you can walk in now from 10 to 2, but our helpline is open 10 to 6, so they take phone calls and emails. And then we do have after-hour support in the evenings and for 6 hours a day on the weekends. Next, please. So one of the classes we have is called Peer-to-Peer, and this is a recovery-focused educational program for anyone over 18 if they want to start learning how to manage and maintain wellness and recovery. And they commit to coming to 9 two-hour classes once a week. And we're now back in a hybrid mode, so they can either do them on Zoom or in person. You know, we have a thing called the OWL that works quite nicely. And again, intended for people who know they have a mental health condition. Some are in treatment, some are not, but they want to learn more about it. They work on SMART goals and a lot of other things. So, and there's presentations. It's very educational and supportive. Next. We have it also in Spanish. So it's the same class, but it's translated to Spanish. Next. The course that saved my life is called Family to Family. And so I had a sister with schizophrenia, and then my son started showing symptoms when he was a junior in high school. And they started this class in 1997. I'd been dealing with him for a couple of years. And even though it was in my family, when you know, it's very different when it's your kid day to day. And so I took the first class, which was actually 12 weeks at that time. And I told my husband, we better take this class because I don't know if we're going to make it, because we were just on opposite ends of the spectrum of how we were dealing with it, and, you know, pretty depressed ourselves. And we met other families. We weren't alone, and we got a very good education about mental illness. And even though it was in my family, I thought I knew something. I realized I had a lot of misjudgments and misconceptions. I thought medications were magic pills, on and on. And so this is a highly recommended class, and I teach this class and train people to teach the class as well. So next, same class, Spanish. We also have it in Chinese and Korean. Another course we have is called Provider Education. So you think, why do providers need education? It's because it's the only medical condition that exists that people over 18 are told, figure this out on your own. And it's a recipe for disaster. We see it all around us. So this, of course, really helps providers understand how they have to start trying to work with families, understand the lived experience of the person they work with in depth, and how having this educated, supportive family and community can really help a person, you know, you heard it with Recovery Cafe, change their lives and, you know, thrive and can handle, you know, whatever their conditions are. So this is 2.5 weeks, and it's 15 hours, I think, on Fridays. So provider education. Next. We also have locally, this is not a national program, we have our own community peer program. So people who've taken the peer-to-peer recovery education course, they can become peer mentors, and we train them, we give them extensive training. We have a contract with El Camino Hospital, so we work with patients coming out of the hospital, out of the inpatient, outpatient programs. And so a mentor will be in touch with this person 2 phone calls a week, and then an in-person or on Zoom visit. And again, this is a chance for them to learn about wellness and recovery, figure out what their goals are. The mentors take them to places like Recovery Cafe and Grace Community Support Groups, so that at the end of 4 months, they have, you know, community and they understand what they need and to pursue and try to stay out of the hospital and work on their wellness. And people can self-refer to this too. Next. And there's the application can be mailed, but we have all this on our website too, so you can download a lot of these things. Next. Basics is a class for people dealing with children under 18, because now we know that a lot of these things start at very young ages. And so this is a fantastic course for them to learn about all the rights that they have and how they must advocate for their children, because, you know, get IEPs and all of that. And I took that when my son was 27, and I thought, oh boy, I wish I'd had that much earlier. But so that's called the basics class, and it's 6 sessions, and they're online right now. We're thinking of starting in-person classes again. So next. FaithNet, this is a program that we have that we're doing outreach to faith communities, trying to get them to set up mental health friendly, stigma-free congregations. We have a whole page on our website. We have certified, I think, 22 places now. And because we know that these, again, having a supported education, you know, educated community is so important, and faith leaders are first responders. 90% of people with any kind of problems will go to their faith leaders. So we will assist in helping you, and we have a mental health 101 presentation. We have it online, so the next one is in the middle of May. It's on our website. You can attend, and we're happy to help any congregation learn how to set this up. Next. And then we have these presentations called Ending the Silence and In Our Own Voice. Again, free the community. Ending the Silence is typically in schools, middle and high school. We have a version for students, staff, and families. It's an hour presentation with a PowerPoint and a person sharing their lived experience of what it was like to be a young person experiencing mental health symptoms while they were in school, what would have helped them, what did help them. And then In Our Own Voice is a hour long, and it has a video of different people. And then we have 2 live people that they tell what happened to them, what helped them, and what's next for them. And again, they're very powerful presentations. They inspire a lot of people to want to get help when they hear people talk openly about having a mental health condition, and, you know, seeing that people can be in recovery and have a good life. Next. Connection is the support group that's run by, again, peers. We have 3 a week that are drop-in for anybody who has a mental health condition, and it's a good place to start. You know, just drop into a support group. And again, the facilitators all have lived experience. They use group wisdom. If everybody gets a chance to talk for 2 minutes about what their current challenges are, and then the group helps offer support and things that help them. And we had 1 before COVID, now we have 3, so we're keeping them. Next. We also have them in other languages. This is Asian Pacific Islander group. Next. We have family support groups. We just started the in-person one back in our office on the first Tuesday of the month, but we have several that are on Zoom, and a lot of the other affiliates have them. So you can find a support group probably almost any night of the week now. And again, a good place for people to start, meet other people dealing with the same challenges. The facilitators have lived experience. They know how to run a group, and everyone gets a chance to share. And next. So this is about the online, and all this is on our website. That's the schedule for our affiliate. Next. And we have a general meeting, we call them. It's the second Tuesday of most months, it should say there. There's 3 months we don't. And we usually have very good speakers. So we have one next week. No, this week. I don't even know what day it is. See, that's what happens when you're semi-retired. But it's second Tuesday. I have my March calendar up here. So of the month, so I know it's coming up. And the speaker we have this month is an expert from Stanford who's going to talk about women in menopause and mood. So it's an interesting topic for quite a few people. And again, you just sign up, get the Zoom link, and, you know, can attend. Next. I'm almost done, I think. Oh, our walk. So this is a once a year event. This is our biggest fundraiser. And it's going to be October 5th. And it's free to the community. We encourage people to come out. We're going to be at the History Park. I think that's our 3rd year. And we have good speakers, and it's a 5K walk around the park. Next. And again, lots of volunteer opportunities. We have holiday drive. The walk is the biggest one. We do have a volunteer drop-in room twice a week for 3 hours on Monday and Wednesday that people can drop in and help fold brochures. And it's a way for people to socialize as well. We have snacks. So next, that's it. So if you have any questions, and again, just remember all of our services are free. You meet great people. You're not alone if you're dealing with this stuff. So, okay.
So
Thank
this is,
you, Kathy, and the other speakers will, and Kathy will be hosting breakout groups. If you want to go into more depth with any of them.
But Arthur, did you have a quick question?
well, if we're going to go into breakout rooms, I'll ask you there.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
Thank you. And Camille, Tom's going to hop in here next, so we probably would need to stop sharing so he can take over the big screen.
All right, I will do just that. Well, it's wonderful getting to be here with you all tonight. My name is Tom Llewellyn. I am joining you from the Santa Cruz Mountains on the traditional lands of the Amamutsan tribe, with whom I actually share water and septic, and the center for their community land trust is just outside my window right here. And so I'm very much in connection with the peoples of this land, which I'm, again, very fortunate to have been able to build a relationship and be in relationship with them. So going to just kind of talk to you a little bit about the work that we do at Shareable. I've been with the organization now for just over a decade, but kind of the root of Shareable's work is really about storytelling, but it's to kind of lift up examples of the amazing things that are happening all over the world. And when Shareable was founded, we're just coming up on our 15-year anniversary this fall. The initial idea was that there was a need to start a sharing movement. And very quickly, the founders, as they were researching, realized, oh, there's an amazing sharing movement already happening. It's going on all over the world. It's just not talked about nearly enough. And so the idea of creating this kind of mouthpiece for that came up. And so, the real basis of it is that sharing is the fabric of community and has been traditionally and will continue to be. And so many of these new ideas or things that were coming up, with the quote unquote sharing economy and being presented as some like new hot thing, we're really just trying to get back to a sense of connection and community that can only really be found through sharing with each other, right? Through sharing with those that are in close proximity to us. I go back to this picture of a barn raising as a kind of classical example of that, but it shows up in many, many different ways and has historically as well. So our mission statement at Shareable, we're a nonprofit news and action hub that empowers communities to share for a more resilient, equitable, and joyful world. We have our core values of solidarity, abundance, curiosity, liberation, and celebration. And again, that celebrating is really, really important, to celebrate the things that are working. And one of the key tenets that we've kind of stuck to and that we've seen as we've now documented over 4,500 different ways that people are sharing resources around the world, is that pretty much all the building blocks, all of the examples, all of the solutions that we need are already present. There's somebody already doing it. And what our work is to learn from each other and to bring those different things that are working and to replicate them and adapt them into our own communities to improve the lives of ourselves and those that we hold dear and those that are around us. And so this is just an example of the types of articles and things you might find on Shareable. It's a mix of reported stories of how-to content to support groups to be able to replicate projects in their own communities, which I'm going to get to in a little bit more depth in a moment. And it's that storytelling, right? It's also like I was saying, learning from others, hearing their stories, and finding out that the same struggles that you may be facing are being faced by other people as well, and that there really is a sense of solidarity of as a kind of collective, as a society, as a species, that we're going through a lot of the same things and doing it together. So in 2017, I was fortunate to be part of a grant circle, which was actually co-facilitated by Leslie, called the, and I butcher it from time to time. So Leslie, you jump in if I get it wrong. The Thriving Communities Collaborative. I already missed it. The jump in. Tell me.
The group was called the Thriving Resilient Communities Collaboratory, and it's still there, but it was the council was made up of all the people who were at the table for grant money.
So while we were doing this process, and there's been a number of years of circles before this, but Shareable as an organization, we decided that instead of kind of pushing forward a solo project to be evaluated and supported by the group, that we were more interested in doing a collaborative project, and felt like that is really the kind of essence of what that kind of group process was all about. And so we partnered with Transition US, Post Carbon Institute, and New Stories to really start thinking about resilience in a deeper way, and to both tell the stories of groups that were facing disasters and other disruptions, and also to support groups that were wanting to create new resiliency projects in their communities. And so coming out of that, the project that Shareable, and at the time Post Carbon Institute, we took on the development of the storytelling aspect and what became known as the response. And so on the response, to date, we've documented over 13 different disasters from around the world with audio documentaries, which have been heard on over 150 radio stations, to really kind of take a closer look at how communities really respond when disasters happen. And what we found, we kind of came into it from the idea that there are climate disasters are disruptive, they're scary, and there's more and more of them happening all around the world. But at the same time, while most of the media attention of these disasters is really given to the destruction, to the victimizing people that are experiencing those disasters, lifting up just a few token heroes, oftentimes that are coming from outside of the communities that are facing these disruptions, and then on the worst case, highlighting or pushing the perception of criminality, of that people are looting when they're trying to get their basic needs met, and that pushing of a criminality narrative often leads to the justification for really terrible behavior by not only by the police but also by vigilantes. And a very strong example of that happened in New Orleans during Katrina, where there was police and vigilantes carrying out extrajudicial killings in the street of people that were just trying to get to safety and get their needs met. And at the same time, there was also stories where there was people that were sheltering in the Superdome. There was all these stories that were put out by mainstream media, by The Guardian, by all these different places, talking about how people were being raped inside of this, that people were stealing from each other. And the truth was, it was anything but. There was thousands and thousands of people with very few resources because the federal government was not bringing food, was not bringing water, or what they were bringing was very low. And yet all these thousands of people organized together and made sure that people's needs were met in that moment. And it was really an incredible story. And so that is that unreported story, right? That these disasters bring people together and that they really reveal the collective heroic capacity that exists within our communities and can lead to transformative change. And a really great example of that is in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, where there was these mutual aid centers that seemingly popped up organically, but really they came out of the existing networks where organizers had been working, fighting against austerity measures in Puerto Rico, and working to, creating community kitchens basically to feed protesters and everything. So they had this history. And so then when the disaster happened and people lost their homes and lost their ability to cook for themselves, they jumped to it, started serving food from makeshift resilience centers, and it spread. And at the height, there was, I think, as many as 12 of these formalized spaces and far more pop-ups that were happening all over the island. And we documented that in a film, which you can watch for free. You can access it on our website, or you can just look up the response, how Puerto Ricans are restoring power to the people. And it's a 30-minute documentary. It's free on YouTube. But that story is not unique. In New York City, when Hurricane Sandy hit, there was the largest community, so independent, not FEMA, not the Red Cross response. There was, at the height, there was 60,000 volunteers in New York City, many of which were in the Rockaways neighborhood of Queens, and they rallied together. They created makeshift community centers. The churches were turned into organizing hubs, and there was amazing partnerships that happened that never would have happened otherwise if the community didn't rally together. And fortunately, it was coming on the heels of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and so there was a lot of organizers which had already been networking which had already been networking with each other. And so they were able to rally very quickly. And that's an ongoing theme that we found in so many of the disasters that we have documented, this being the Mexico City earthquake, where there was so much misinformation in 2017 after the earthquake, and there was resources going to places where there actually wasn't anybody buried, and there was people that were buried under rubble that weren't getting support. And so there was a number of organizers that started the Verificado S19 program to, with basically laptops, WhatsApp groups, spreadsheets, and Google Maps to identify, and people on bicycles that would ride around. There would be a rumor that there was support needed. Somebody would go there. They'd message back and saying, yes, we need a truck. We need a bulldozer. We need to get materials out, or we just need people with picks and shovels, or the people have already gotten out and there's no resources there. And it was so effective that the Mexican government, the army and the police started calling these organizers that were independent, saying, where should we go? You clearly have your finger on the pulse better than we do. And after that disaster was over, the Mexico City government has created their own citizen version of this Verificado S19 program so that citizens can verify what's needed during disasters. Another example in Northern California, after the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, where there was so many people displaced, at that point in time, the largest urban fire in U.S. history. But one of the things that was not being considered, or not nearly enough, was the undocumented community. There's a very large number of undocumented members of the Santa Rosa area, many of which lost their homes and their employment when the fires happened. And so there was this beautiful response to that on DocuFund, where there was a number of different organizations, day labor centers, and other groups that already had relationships with the undocumented community, that were able to rally together and create the DocuFund, and people were able to support that community both from within it and from without. And in last example that I'll use is the triple disaster in Japan in 2011, where there was this just kind of almost groundbreaking response in one of the cities, in the town of Onagawa, where whereas many of the rural areas that had been hit by the tsunami, and in Onagawa, they lost about 10% of their population. The majority of their homes and infrastructure was destroyed. And this happened all over the coast. And many of the cities chose the kind of more of a top-down approach. They decided they were going to put up a big seawall, and people left. They didn't stay there. They stayed in the village because of the beauty of being by the sea. And so in the town of Onagawa, the mayor and the city council, they realized they were much older, and they realized, we're not going to see this transition through. And so they invited the young people that had grown up there to come back. And they ended up having one of the youngest mayors in all of Japan. And they decided that they did a series of listening sessions throughout the community. And they found out that the two key pieces that was on everybody's mind that people wanted to have factored into the rebuild was safety and beauty. And they used that as the design factors for completely redesigning the community, where they decided to actually extract a huge percent of the hilltops, bring down the soil. They created 3 distinct areas. They put at this new kind of middle ground, they put all the city infrastructure, the churches, the schools, businesses, at the new higher level, which was higher than any tsunami could ever go, is where they're rebuilding all of the homes. And then they redesigned all of the kind of industrial infrastructure down by the sea, but in a way that'd be resilient for future disasters. And these lessons were documented by somebody who had lost their home in paradise. And they went on a fact-finding journey to find out how to bring that experience from Onagawa back to the kind of rebuilding of Paradise, California. And that process is now ongoing. So we've documented all of these examples in 30 to an hour long audio documentaries and many, many more. We also have our ongoing conversation series. And I'm just going to wrap up really quick with some opportunities to engage with the work that we're doing and to bring this into your own communities. So I started at the beginning saying that we had documented all these examples, and what was really needed was a pathway for replication and adaptation of these proven solutions in other places. And so that's why we've now developed our new program, Solidarity Works, which is to do just that. And the first examples, last year, we partnered with the People Powered Solar Cooperative, and specifically their People Power Battery Collective, which is in the East Bay. And what they had set up is a whole network of emergency electric generators, like battery generators, basically, which can be distributed when there's a disaster to people that need power, that have life-saving medical devices, what have you. And instead of having a central hub where the organization has all of those batteries in one place, they already have them distributed all over the community. And so that when the power goes out in one area in Oakland, then the batteries can get organically distributed to those neighborhoods that need them. They can get, and then those people become the hosts of them. And when they're needed somewhere else, they can get distributed around. And we thought that was a pretty amazing community response. And so we partnered with them to create an 8-week-long collab, which was open to the public. We had about 40 people see the program all the way through, and there are currently about 15 new emergency battery networks in development around the United States that were coming out of that program. We documented all of those lessons, we broke them into bite-sized chunks, and we've created a toolkit that anybody can walk through and use to get through. There's graphic recordings from every single one of the sessions, and I'm going to go ahead and put links for all these things in the chat in just a moment when I finish speaking. So that's a great example. We currently are running a Library of Things collab. We are 5 sessions through, but anybody can join at any point in time. And we're going through all the steps of what it takes to start a Library of Things, a tool library, a kitchen library, a seed library, whatever you might need to know. And so we have experts from the field from the United States and internationally as well that are leading workshops every single week. And again, those are open to the public, and you can jump in whenever you want. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat in just a moment. And finally, or not finally, but another easy way to plug in is we've got over 300 how-to guides on Shareable to be able to do anything from, how to grow your own toilet paper, the legal tools for land return, if you're trying to do some land back projects, the way to do that, how to implement donut economics in your community, how to create mutual aid network, and how to create a resilient space in your neighborhood, partnering with Susan Silver on that one. And so there's all these guides, and we're currently going through, as I mentioned, we've got over 300. We're in the process of evaluating all 300 of those, and we're creating kind of our list of top 50 that we're updating as a resource moving forward. But all 3 of them are available on our website right now. And then finally, other things that we've got going on at Shareable is we've got a seasonal in the spring and fall. We partner with Tufts University on the Cities at Tufts lecture series, which is focused on uplifting diverse perspectives in urban planning. Those are open lectures on many Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. And again, you can find the information for that on our website. We're also working with the Rural Power Coalition to support the just transition of rural communities to renewable energy future, and specifically focusing on rural electric cooperatives, of which 42 million people in the United States are member owners of their electric utilities. They basically have governance rights over their PG&Es. And so there's this amazing opportunity to transition all of those energy systems. And 2 years ago, we were successful at getting over $10 billion with a B in the Inflation Reduction Act to support that just transition. And so that's ongoing work that we're a part of. Another opportunity, we have a book where we've documented many of the top solutions from around the world. We work with 15 fellows in 9 different countries over the course of 2 years to document these solutions around food, housing, waste, energy, technology. And Leslie, I'm just wrapping up. And so you can download that book on our site. And I'm going to put a link to that in the chat in just a moment. And finally, coming up at the beginning of May, starting if you're in person in Humboldt County, there's going to be in-person events on the April 20th and 21st, but online for the world, we have the Decolonizing Economic Summit, which this is the 3rd year that Shareable has been a partner on that. And again, I'm going to put a link to that in the chat in just a moment. And that wraps up. If you have any questions for me, I'm going to be hopping in one of those breakout rooms, and I'm also available. I'll put my email in the chat.
Woo! Thank you, Tom. That was a whirlwind tour of the incredible world of Shareable. Camille, could you just put up the slides for me briefly? Well, I'm going to take about a minute here to just let you know that in the slides, when you get them, can you go to the next slide, please? My goal is to encourage people to use the tools that are out there to communicate in your groups. I use Google accounts a lot. Zoom, can you go to the next slide? This is what our course is running on. There's a lot of ways that you can use free tools that are out there. Like our neighborhood has a Google spreadsheet with everybody's contact information on it that only we can see. And we have a text chat that we used in the evacuations to make sure that everybody knew to get out and they had gotten out and that they knew to come back. It's out there, it's available. You can do it. If you are trying to figure out how to do something, I'm happy to help. Thank you. And now we're going into breakouts for about 20 minutes, and then we'll wrap by 8. So.
Okay. So,